Hey comrades, what's up? So I finished volume 3 of the light novel of the Saga of Tanya and the Evil, and it continues to be very good. The only thing I don't like about it is I'm really not a fan ever, under any circumstance. Let me think. I would say most circumstances of the shifting of point of view characters. I really like my stories to just be like, here's this character, this is their life, this is what they're doing. My biggest problem with fantasy, which I love, is my favorite kind of genre, this like romantic fantasy stuff, high fantasy, which is kind of like historic fantasy because it's got magic and stuff, but is that they love shifting viewpoints. I did not like Game of Thrones, the first book, Song of Fire and Ice, or Game of Thrones is the first book in the, I don't remember, it doesn't matter. You know what I'm talking about. I read that first book before I watched the show, before I heard of the show. I never watched the show because I hated the book so much. Before any of that crap, I was like, I don't think I knew what I was doing. I used to just go to the library and just like check books out based on their covers. And so I think that's how I read the first book. And I was reading it, and I was like, oh, I kind of like this Ned Stark guy. I kind of like this dwarf guy. And then they killed one of them off, which wasn't a big deal. It was just like you spent so much time with people I did not care for at all. And it's like, I'm not going to waste my time on a viewpoint of somebody I actively dislike. I compare it a little bit to people who are turned off by The Last of Us 2, if you will. By the man, woman, the trans man. I don't know. The Last of Us is, quote unquote, part 1, is a complete story that, just based on the very limited stuff I know about, quote unquote, part 2. In fact, once I played I started the DLC of the part 1 at some point, and then I turned it off, and I was like, no, the story's complete. I don't need to add anything to it. Like, I don't think it's some masterpiece or perfect in any way, but everything that's been added on that I have like experienced, whether through cultural osmosis or through, whatever, has been bad. Has taken away from the story and my enjoyment of the first game, which I did not. I'm like, zombies, ugh. And then I played it, I was like, that was actually pretty good. Right? Pretty good. Like a 7 out of 10. And then the DLC was like, okay, now I'm good. So I can only imagine, just based on the things I heard tale of, that the sequel is just awful and would, be like, I'm good. So that's my take on that. That being said, my only gripe with the Saga of Tanya the Evil is we don't spend enough time with Tanya, who's awesome. She's well written. She's got a fun personality. She has a lot of internal dialogue that I like. I like her little crew of people. But I don't mind that we spend time with like the Republican forces or the Commonwealth forces, and the actress, the voice actress, does a good job, kind of like with the accents. They don't really give the French / the Republic like any accent, but the Commonwealth has like a British accent. And I feel like this book was shorter, the third one. I feel like it just kind of cruised through, which is... The hard thing is with these is I don't exactly remember where they start and stop, and then it's hard to, like, look into it, because I'm doing this by audiobook. So when I look at, like, the chapters, essentially, of the online, it's like, I vaguely remember what that chapter's about. Because so much is happening, and these books move pretty quick. I would say they move at like a slightly quick pace. Like it's like if 5 is like an average, they move at like a 6.5. So it's quick enough where it's like a lot of stuff happens, but you don't feel like it's just like cruising through stuff. So they cover a lot of ground in each volume, and the volumes these aren't like manga arcs, right? It's like, well, essentially this volume will have, I think this volume had like 3 arcs. So it starts off, and Tanya and crew execute. And this might have been at the end of the second volume, so I apologize for repeating myself. I'm not going to look it up. So Tanya and crew execute on the order. They dive into enemy territory. They blow up a bunch of stuff. They destroy the enemy headquarters. Oh, I think this book starts with... I think that's in the previous volume. Anyway, they find like a secret... in case this isn't in this volume, we're not in the second volume. They find a secret... base, essentially, and they blow the shit out of it and kill everyone inside. We later find out in this volume for sure that was this is the second time Tanya has like stumbled upon a Commonwealth intelligence gathering site and just destroy them. And so the Commonwealth is like, there's a mole, there's a whole section in volume 3 here where the Commonwealth is, people are like, I don't trust you, and you don't trust me, and we can't trust this, and like subterfuge, and like this is going on. And it's very interesting because it's like, it's nice. This is the point where it's nice because you see the perspective from like the enemy camp to where they're like, man, something's happening and it ain't right. So we got to figure it out because Tanya, 3 times, because the sub too. So 3 times she just like randomly stumbles. Like there was the intelligence post they blew up. They didn't know it was an intelligence post. They just like dived in and like, oh, there's a command post, let's blow it up. And then they blew it up. Then there's a sub they blew up and killed like the guy from the Anton Alliance. And then this was the 3rd time where they just kind of stumble in to this area by accident and then destroy it using like science essentially. So that was fun to see the ramifications of that, because at the time she's like, I don't know, there's something going on down there, and if we can like suffocate them out by like making a bunch of explosions and burning up all the oxygen, it'll kill everybody, and that'll be great. And then they did, and they killed everybody. They had no idea. There's a whole scene where Commonwealth is like, they're trying to figure it out, and the only survivor is like he dies like collapsed lung, and they're like, there's a mole and this and that, and it's really just like Tanya stumbling into things. And that's after the 3rd volume, I'm like, there's a lot of Tanya just like stumbling into things, like being like a good planner and thinking things through thoroughly and being smart and kind of like using her knowledge of like American history. And now this is kind of like in the past American history, but not exactly, but just having a firm grasp of like Sun Tzu and like prior military doctrine in a similar kind of era gives her like an edge. And then actually comes up here. So Operation Lock Key, whatever, they destroy the headquarters. They just absolutely rout the Republican army. And then just completely decimate them, like destroy them in the war. And then everyone's kind of like celebrating their victory. And then Tanya's like thinking about it. She's like, what would I do in this situation? And then she thinks of Dunkirk. Now the French like pieced out to Britain and they kept fighting and there was like a continued resistance and all this stuff. And she's like, we got to stop from happening. So she goes to the base commander where she's at. She begs. And he's like, no, I'm not going to send you. And she's like, whatever, I'm going to do whatever I want on my own. Because there's about to be like a ceasefire treaty. And so she preps to go attack this base, this shipyard, where the last like Republican people are like hanging out before they like take off on their ships. And then at the last second she gets stopped by like the ceasefire going through, and she's super distraught about it because she's like, this could have ended the war, this could have made a huge impact, and there's nothing she could do. Like she could still kind of like try to disobey orders, and she goes under like court, or she doesn't go to court martial for this because everyone's like super happy about the end of the war. And so she tries to go to talk to like one of the generals, because there's 2 main generals. There's the Z guy and then the L guy. I can't remember their names, like Zugoth and Ludendorff or something. But she goes to talk to Ludendorff, whatever his name is. But then like he's busy, and she's just like, oh, never mind. And then this is like where everyone's celebrating the victory, and then like, of course, the Republic is still going to fight, and then the Commonwealth is going to declare war, and then he's talking to like Zuchtdorf, because they always have like these meetings in this cafeteria, and he's like, I think Tanya was trying to, or Major Kurgoff, whatever her name is, was trying to tell me something, but then she like did it at the last second, and I have a sinking suspicion she knew this was going to happen, and it kind of concerns me, because how does she know? How is she so wise for one so young? Right. So then the war continues. We get a lot of back and forth. We see a little bit more of, I think Mary Sue joins the military here in like America, because they're like recruiting to kind of help out, and they're allowing like Anton Alliance people to join. And so she's joining, and we find out she has some like magical capabilities, and she's going to become a predominant enemy of Tanya. I just know, I know this because I read something about it once a while ago. So that's a future hold. And then let's see, so we do that. Okay, then there's a lot of like talking back and forth with Commonwealth, regret on the Empire side. And then we delve into the end of the volume, delves into the southern campaign, the southern continent, which is Africa, right? So they're in like the deserts of North Africa. And there's a Rommel, like literally just Rommel, like in America, like in our real world, World War II, who goes down there with like an army corps, which is like 2 to 3 divisions. I think this one is only 2 divisions. And he's supposed to go up against like all the remaining Republic army and their like colonial holdings and a whole Commonwealth group. And people think he's just going to go down there and like make a presence known. And they're allied with like, they have like a neutrality agreement from Spain, essentially. And then they have like a non-war alliance, like for trade and stuff, with Italy, just like in World War II. So that's fun. And then we get a little more talk. Like there's the Russians out there somewhere. We spend some time with Mr. X, and he's with some angels, and one of them's complaining about how like his area of like dominance is like completely faithless, and they hate God, and they're all atheists. And it's obviously talking about the communists. So that's kind of funny because we have a conversation with Tanya about being atheist and how she loves it and how she doesn't want to rely on Mr. X and all that good stuff. Anyway, so then the Southern Battle, Tanya goes down there and like meets Rommel, and he's like, "Oh, I'm concerned about her. She's got all these like negative things, and I don't understand why they give her like free license to do whatever she wants." And they kind of go back and forth. But then Tanya proves in like their first encounter with the enemy. So Rommel, before she even gets down there, kind of destroys the Commonwealth forces in the air, like just like landing it and going, because they were not ready. They thought they were going to just land and like set up shop, but he landed and went and decimated them before they could like organize like a united front. So he was able to destroy like 3 bases and take over this like naval yard or naval base, which gave like the Empire like a really big heads up. And so because as like a reward, he got Tanya's battalion to come down. So she comes down, and then they're out like fighting, and then someone dies, some lieutenant colonel dies, so now she's in charge of like this thing under him in like this area. And so there's some stuff about that, some viewpoint with Gantz, who's one of the lieutenants. There's Gantz, Vice, and the girl, who are like the 3 main subordinates that we hear about. We don't get a lot from them, but they get like some play. So then after that, at some point, so the idea is that then we find out the Republican force is under the commander, the general who got away, who Tanya could have killed if they allowed her to. He's got like a whole plan where he's pretending that his forces are split up to kind of draw out the Empire, but in reality they're all united and they're going to encircle it and destroy the Empire, and it's going to be like a great victory and all this stuff. Meanwhile, Tanya's like, "Hey, I'm going to go on reconnaissance because these planes aren't seeing what they need to see at night, but me and the mages can go check it out." And Rommel's like, "Yeah, that's fine." So she goes out, and to all the spots where the army is supposed to be, and she's like, "There's no army here." And so then we spent a lot of time with her in her head being like, "Okay, how do I get out of this situation without dying?" Because she figures out there's an encirclement and the army's screwed, and she's like, "Well, I can't run away because they'll court-martial me and kill me, so that's no good. I can't like attack directly because then I'll die. If we attack behind, we attack the water." She goes through all these things, and eventually she's like, "Well, I guess I got to just like attack and then go from there." And then we get it from the Republic side, and the encirclement's going well, but then all of a sudden the mages are coming in and they decimate the right flank, and then they send people from the central flank. But as soon as they do that, the Tanya and the mages like zoom into the center and they start attacking like the command post, and it's like the exact same thing that just happened in the mainland during the Rhine front and all that stuff. And they're freaking out, and then she like blows up this area and almost kills all the leaders, but they barely like survive. And then we see it from her point of view, and she's like, "Oh, this is great. I just attacked these guys, and then I ran to Central, and I just blew up some ground stuff so I could say I did something." Like, she wasn't planning on destroying the command post and everything. This is what I'm talking about. When it's like Tanya just kind of stumbles into like successes sometimes. Like, she's very good, very competent, a good leader, but it's like she just happenstances into like attacking the exact objective that would be the most beneficial, which is kind of silly, but whatever, it's fun. So then she's having a good time. She kills a bunch of mages, and then she's like, "Oh man, this war is going to keep going. I'm very sad about that." And then we get a take from the Commonwealth where like the Prime Minister is like, "We have to be involved in this. We have to stop the Empire because they're going to come to our shores, and we're going to fight to the last man," and all, kind of like a Churchill kind of speech. And that's where Volume 3 ends. So sad times. I wonder if this whole thing is going to be war. I'd kind of be interested to see Tanya like move past the war and like be a lawyer or something. I think that'd be good, but it looks like at least his first 8 volumes is all war. And we'll see. All right, cool. I'm assuming at some point it'll get like Japanese. Like, it keeps going back to like Mr. X and the Angels, and I'm like, this is going to go somewhere at some point. It's going to be ridiculous. But I don't have any forward information about that. Anyway, but yeah, Volume 3 is excellent, just like the last 2, and I'm excited to continue reading and see where this goes. Catch y'all later.